there's like this movement that like people are coming for Trey Lance in a way where I really don't understand how he hasn't said anything, done anything, or behaved in any way that should have any knives out for him.
The opposite, in fact.
You would think. And when you really look at the game that he played in Chicago, it is clearly not cloaked in glory. It's not half as bad as Kaepernick played in that Chicago fog slop game that was one of the worst performances I've ever seen any quarterback ever have. Like, there have been many worse 49er quarterback performances than what we saw out of Trey Lance in week 1. And who knows what he's going to turn into. For those who expect a completely realized quarterback early in this year, you didn't even know what the starting line was. Like, don't complain about how he's not at the finish line. Easy for me to say. He's not at the finishing line yet when you don't even know what the starting line is.
We're also too reliant we're too judging the final result as the end-all, be-all. Let's be honest. What was the last game that we saw the 49ers win? It was Green Bay. And the 49ers fans loved that win for Green. Jimmy outplayed Rodgers in the fourth. Jimmy threw 2 sideline easy pick sixes in the second half that were dropped. Trey Lance didn't do that in this game. So, I mean, I think people just need to, not to mention, I think if you look at week 1, if we're really going to be judging this harshly, in a monsoon in his third start, he had a higher QBR than Aaron Rodgers, Dak Prescott, Derek Carr, Joe Burrow, and 7 or 8 other quarterbacks last week. So I think people just we need to show patience, and then we're not good at it.
And this whole game of but what about has got to stop. Somebody from the 650 is saying, like, just like how y'all came after Jimmy last season, right? We didn't come for Jimmy. If anything, the criticism that we heaped on Jimmy was all proven true by the football franchise that knows more about this than any of us who criticize it the day after, the week after. Kyle Shanahan. Not Damon Bruce, not Larry Krueger, not Ray Ratto, not Mark Willard, not Dan Dibley, not Joe Fortenbaugh, not Bonte Hill, not Butcher Boy, not anybody. No one at this station doubted Jimmy Garoppolo more than Kyle Shanahan.
We're all here because the 49er brass made the decision that they needed to do better at the quarterback spot. That's what got us here. How did we arrive here? Well, first the dinosaurs got big and fat and died, but then that happened.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes. So this whole, I want to keep on going back to this, that, the other, what about all this criticism? Hey, look, you want to really go back to it? Let's go back to the dawn of time when I laughed the Jimmy Garoppolo trade off the air, and then he starts 5-0, and I look like the jackass, right? Had you not traded for Jimmy Garoppolo, maybe Kyle Shanahan does bother to scout Patrick Mahomes that year. Maybe he does draft Patrick Mahomes because he didn't make the trade for Jimmy Garoppolo. But the die had already been cast.
As a young man with multiple kids, pointing to you, Damon, do you judge your 2 boys
harshly
exactly the same?
No.
Of course not. One's what, 5 or 6?
3,
and the other's
1.
All right, you're not going to judge Garoppolo in his 4th year or whatever, 5th year, whatever it is, the same as a guy making his 3rd NFL start. So if you're saying if the texter wants to say there's 2 standards, there should be 2 standards. There really should be.
Absolutely. There's no equality in a locker room. There isn't. I mean, sure, there's the concepts of equality and everyone should be treated the same way.
Meritocracy, so on and so forth.
Dude,
who sits.
It's really, really simple. When Leon Lett screwed up in Dallas and went after the field goal and kicked the Thanksgiving snow game with Leon Lett, Jimmy Johnson after the game said, did you come after Leon Lett really hard? And he's like, no, it's Leon. It's,
right.
He's a really, really good player who made one mistake today. He'll survive that. We'll be fine. Had a rookie done that, had a backup tackle done that, the guy's cutting out of the building.
Curvin Richards that same year fell asleep in a meeting, was cut.
Gone. Exactly.
And Jimmy said, you know what? I've got one rule, and it's consistent. I treat everybody differently.
Exactly. There is no everyone gets the same treatment in sports. That doesn't happen. Jason La Canfora, today, writing for the Washington Post, said that the 49ers went through quite the process with an estranged backup quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo, bringing him back into the fold just before the season, and Lance struggled in the opener. The team thinks that it has Super Bowl potential, and the internal hope was that the games against the rebuilding Bears and Seahawks might provide a soft opening. Gulp. He actually writes the word gulp. If the 49ers open 0-2, people who have worked with and for Kyle Shanahan anticipate that Garoppolo will be starting by week 3 Sunday night meeting with a strong Broncos defense. Okay, Jason La Canfora, I don't know who you know that you think has that sort of inside track to Kyle Shanahan, but if you think Kyle Shanahan is dumb enough to have said out loud to anyone other than maybe John Lynch, you know, the guy that he works with, that this could be the plan. If you think that Kyle Shanahan has said this to anyone who could have walked out of the room with it and told someone else, you're out of your mind. There is no way. And I do want to say that if they really do give up on this kid after 8 quarters and Jimmy Garoppolo were to be the quarterback in Denver, that to me is a borderline fireable offense.
Really?
Yeah, I mean,
because you think it's too. You're not investing enough time in Trey to allow him to flourish.
If your plans are that wishy-washy,
if you have that little conviction in your quarterback choice, then that speaks negatively upon you. That's your take.
That means that Kyle Shanahan is probably better off being an offensive coordinator than a head coach, or certainly anyone with any roster control.
The other thing about this report
that would be nuts.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's so knee-jerk that it makes you wonder. But also the way that thing's worded, Damon, isn't it kind of like people who kind of know the thinking of Kyle Shanahan have told me? That doesn't sound like a direct, like I talked to Shanahan and this is what he said. That's
people who have worked with and for Kyle Shanahan anticipate that Garoppolo will be starting by week 3. By week 3, you're going to give up on your highly invested on draft pick after 8 quarters. That would be so devastating to Trey Lance's reputation, the foundation of his career, the locker room. You'd have to trade him. The locker room could never take him seriously again. And I don't know how much anyone could ever take what Kyle Shanahan, speaking with conviction about anything. You know, Trey's our guy. This is Trey's team. And this is the 7 weeks from now, 8 weeks from now, 2 months from now, hey, results matter. This is a results-based business.
No doubt.
And we have things to talk about. After 8 quarters of football, if they're 0-2 and Jimmy Garoppolo were to start in Denver, that would be the biggest. I have no conviction in my feelings. I have no conviction in my decisions move a head coach could possibly make.
Are they 0-1 because of Trey?
I don't think so.
And there's no reference in this to any. So it doesn't matter how Trey plays, just the win or the loss. If they lose, it doesn't matter how he plays. There's no context to that. It's not like if they lose and he looks like a reincarnation of Gio Carmazzi. It's just if they lose, suddenly he's out. I will say this: there's something that's very true that has not been spoken very much about this 49er team this year, and that is that they have 2 clear goals: develop Trey Lance, win the Super Bowl in Arizona next February. Those are 2 clear goals. What we don't know is which one is really priority number 1, and when, if they feel like Trey is going to prevent them, his development's going to prevent them from achieving that second goal, at what point do they pivot and say, you know what, Now that goal, winning the Super Bowl, takes priority over this goal, developing Trey Lance. And I think it's maybe a little naive to say that day's never coming, but I think it's totally crazy, knee-jerk, nutty talk to talk that's coming in week 3. It could come in week 8.
Look, I brought this up with Ray yesterday. This whole just anointed, ready to win a Super Bowl. Sure, they were in the NFC title game last year, but maybe that's a little too ahead of schedule. Ready to win a Super Bowl means how can you possibly be ready to win a Super Bowl when you got the biggest question mark at the most important position in North American sports? But, that's really what they have.
And 3 essentially they're rookies, manning the interior spots, protecting the middle of your offensive line. Right. They're all young guys.
Now a very untested, unproven backfield. There are way too many I don't know about that in too important roles to just assume, they're absolutely a Super Bowl team. Super Bowl teams don't play defense like that in any conditions. Super Bowl teams don't make mistakes like that. Super Bowl teams aren't undisciplined and go out and draw that many penalties. They don't. So if they're going to keep on doing that, maybe they aren't this ready to be a Super Bowl team that they fancy themselves. Look, the Detroit Lions think they're a Super Bowl team at the beginning of the year. Everyone does. So the Niners don't get any bonus points that the NFL looks at and goes, you should really take them extra seriously. The window is now. The window is now. Well, if the window is now, you probably shouldn't have made a quarterback change.
Well, and maybe I'm new to the scene here, but isn't your Super Bowl window almost always tied to you have a quarterback that you believe you can win that game with?
Yes.
So they're going with a young quarterback who has awesome traits, who's got great potential, who's a phenomenal prospect. But until Trey goes from prospect to more development and shows the ability to win games and how he's going to do this, and we can't even say that the Super Bowl window is truly open if he's the starting quarterback until he proves that he's on a certain level that can potentially win that game, or at least win the conference. Otherwise, I think the Niners have a very good roster. Is their Super Bowl window open? I would say that's an unknown until we know what Trey is going to do and how he's going to play more consistently, how he's going to play week to week.
You don't need a great quarterback. You don't have to have Patrick Mahomes to win the Super Bowl. It obviously helps. You don't have to have Justin Herbert, but you have to have at least very good. There aren't a lot of good to not very good Super Bowl champion quarterbacks walking around. There really aren't. There are a few. Some have been elevated by the quality of coaching and team that they were in the situation, and they are champions. But trying to do that as we moved into every year that I look at football, it's the most sophisticated year the game's ever looked to me. It doesn't get easier in any year going forward. Football only becomes more and more difficult, more hard, more of a challenge, and the athletes that play in this league are second to none. They are just, titans walking among us. The amount of talent that is in this league is extraordinary. The amount of talent that was on display last night, that Thursday nighter. It was a fantastic game. Mahomes and Herbert, God, can Trey Lance ever be that?
I don't even you just put Herbert in that Super Bowl category. I wouldn't. I know he's got the skills to do it, and he makes incredible throws. He's 6-8 in his last 14 starts. The Chargers are 6-8 in their last 14 starts with Herbert as the starting quarterback. He's an awesome thrower. He's got huge potential. He's a great prospect. You can see it. It's all there. Doesn't mean that they're necessarily. I don't know that I would put him in the Mahomes category quite yet. We'll see. He's closer than Trey, right, and we have more to go on.
I'll trade
6-8.
I'll trade you Trent Williams, Nick Bosa, and Trey Lance right now for Justin Herbert.
See, I don't have that level of conviction in him. I love him. I love what I see as well. How about the fourth down throw that he made last night with the game on the line, or at least with the cover on the line, I should say, because I was going against him. I was watching it very closely. But yeah, he makes some incredible throws. 6 and 8 in his last 14 starts.
It's an awful lot of bad San Diego special teams and defense, and Los Angeles. But there's an awful lot of bad football team around him. They've gotten a little bit better, and I think the Chargers are going to be really good this year. They got a little bit of a defense, and what we saw last night on Thursday Night Football, easily 2 of the 6 best teams in the NFL.
Yeah, I would say.
And when I look at the amount of quarterbacking talent, IQ, whatever you want to call it, that was out on that field last night, and then you do the math just back to either Trey Lance or Jimmy Garoppolo, it just you're not even coming close to measuring up to anything like that. You're really not. You're not coming close to measuring up to anything like Justin Herbert or Matthew Stafford. And then the question becomes, do you even really have a Tua here? We'll see. We'll see. I'm not down on Trey Lance, but I don't know Trey Lance. I don't know him. Kyle claims to know him. Kyle has made a move that screams, I have definitive knowledge of what I'm working with here. Well, then if you do, you better have a pocket quarterback. Full stop. Because what makes Patrick Mahomes great, what makes a guy like Justin Herbert feel like one of the next good big things coming, is because those are 2 quarterbacks who only run to extend plays when they have to. Trey Lance cannot be this I'm running with the ball 13-time quarterback. Every single time Trey Lance tucks and runs on a design play, I don't like it.
Well, he takes a hit every time.
I don't like it. You need a quarterback to win in this league. Trey Lance needs to be a quarterback, not this hybrid, not this guy who can also run, not a guy who in some instances is clearly running first before he's even looking for the target or the field or the progression. He needs to win from the pocket. The pocket was so sloppy last week, I'm not holding it against him. It's not going to rain in Santa Clara quite like it did in Chicago, even if it's raining in Santa Clara. He better have a good day passing.
They got to run it. I mean, come on, they're a run team. They play action pass off of it. They ran for 2.4 carry with Jeff Wilson once Elijah Mitchell went down. So the Niners were undisciplined. They had too many penalties. They had busted plays. But the essence of football, winning football, is stop the run the ball. And in the second half of that game, the Bears could run it. Niners couldn't stop it. Niners couldn't run it. So to me, that was first and foremost. I know the quarterback gets all the headlines and we see the inaccuracies, and there's development that needed there for sure. He needs to be more accurate. But that's not why they lost in week 1. And this whole idea that, like, if they lose in week 2, it doesn't matter why. It's all going on Trey. To me, it seems grossly unfair. It is too high of a standard.
888-957-9570. When Larry and I get back, we're going to open up the lines. We're going to take your calls. And I want to ask you this specific question because I think everyone's sort of got a different answer here. Like Mike Martz, right? Mike Martz knows an awful lot about quarterback play, quarterback style. And for him to say, like, I don't see anything in Trey Lance that translates into an NFL quarterback, like that's the first official red light of criticism that I've heard. Because that's a big statement.
It's coming from a guy, though, who chose J.T. O'Sullivan and got J.T. O'Sullivan killed with basically no pass protection. So, yeah, Mike Martz knows football, but he stumbled on some great quarterbacks, Bolger, Warner. So he knows some, but he also, it's not like he's infallible.
Right, no, he's not the end-all, be-all of all quarterbacking evaluation. But to me, that is to be so definitively like, hey, I thought I was going to like this guy, and I trust, what Kyle Shanahan does. But after watching him in this game, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't know if he can play in the NFL. Like, ugh,
what does he do?
I hope not.